Well, good evening. I'm there. I see the recording, so it's time to start. I would like to ask something before we start. There's many of you who do not have your cameras on. I understand I have had a couple of evenings where mine hasn't been on, but I would like to see you all for at least a couple of minutes. I'm going to open us with prayer, and I would like for you to be visually connected if possible while we do our prayer today. So if you would do that, I would appreciate it. It would give me a feeling that there are more of you here. Hi, Chris. Hi, Kayla. Hi, Lisa. And Tree. Yay. I'm going to quit recognizing you all because I can't recognize all of you. But if you'll join me in prayer as we begin tonight. Creator God, we come to you tonight with our hearts heavy for what's going on in our world, for the disease that seems to be growing and growing, to the inability of some of our leaders to lead, to show us the way. We ask that you be with us as we go forward tonight. I especially want to thank tonight those who are with us, who are serving in ministry, those who are new, those who are retiring, those who are in the middle of their career. We thank you for each of these individuals who've heard your call and responded. I also want to thank those who are serving on the Committee on Ministry. It's not an easy job. It's not a quiet, passive job. But I thank you for each person who spent hours this year helping people find their way towards you, helping us all to be better and to have more professional standards. I thank you for our conference council and all the work they've done. Thank you for the people who've made this event possible. Thank you for our conference minister and all those who are working to make sure that we happen. Thank you for the sunshine, for the birds, for the squirrels, and for the few hugs that I get to have. In the name of the Christ, amen. Rachel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Pryor. I am the chair of the Committee on Ministry Subcommittee D for Discernment and Preparation. And it's my pleasure to be able to introduce the new pastors in KO tonight. ComD is the subcommittee that works with people who are seeking to serve as authorized ministers in the United Church of Christ. So if they're working with ComD, that means they have never had any standing or authorization in the UCC anywhere before. This could be because they are ordained, but they've been serving in a different denomination. Or it could be because they're just beginning the process of discerning a call to ministry within our conference. So first I want to introduce the three pastors who are new to KO since the last annual meeting. And they've both come to KO through ComD. The first person, so we realized a little bit later that we had forgotten one person. So I'm going to start with him, and that is Reverend Fred Candler. Fred was around last year, but he is officially serving. So we do want to either introduce or reintroduce him. Fred serves as our conference ministry assistant for pastoral and congregational relations. As a member of Plymouth Church, Fred had initially reached out to Edith about the possibility of transferring his standing, his credentials from actually being retired in the United Methodist Church into authorized standing in the United Church of Christ. Now, in terms of polity, this process was slightly more complicated than usual, and I'm not going to say any more about it than that. But in July of this year, after multiple conversations and reading what many on the Committee of Ministry thought were some of the finest polity papers we have ever read, Fred was granted privilege of call, and the conference council the call to this unique but very helpful role in the conference. Fred comes to us from ministry in Texas with churches both large and small, experience with interim ministry, judicatory level leadership, and active work with social justice issues, especially around the UMC version of our open and affirming process. Fred, we are so thankful for your wisdom and experience. Reverend Travis McKee was called to serve at Trinity at the beginning of January. Prior to beginning ministry in Cheney, he served as pastor at Fairview Christian Church in Gladstone, Kansas City, Missouri area. While Travis is from Tulsa, Oklahoma, he has been serving Disciples of Christ congregations in Kansas and the Kansas City area for the last 12 years. An ordained disciples minister, Travis is a graduate of Phillips Theological Seminary, and he brings a wide range of gifts to his local setting and to the conference. Since coming to KO, he's quickly become part of KO's ongoing ministry, and I know that at least many of our clergy colleagues have really enjoyed getting to know Travis through some of the Zoom check-ins that we've been doing, especially in the last few months. Travis now has been granted ordained ministerial partner standing, and it's so great to have you here with us, Travis. And just called on Sunday, we actually haven't even had a chance to meet with him yet on ComD, but we are welcoming as settled pastor for Freedom's Church in Bern, Reverend Ron DeVore. A graduate of Central Baptist Seminary, Ron is also ordained in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, and he served as a local church pastor, a hospice chaplain, and he's a trained intentional interim minister. Prior to seminary, Ron served in community corrections in McPherson and Topeka. His wife is also a pastor. He has a son in seminary in Colorado and a daughter who is married to a pastor, so I guess they just can't get enough of the church. We will try not to scare him off from the UCC. We welcome you, Ron, and we will be meeting with Ron, who will also be seeking ordained ministerial partner standing with Committee D later this month. And while not new to KO, but newly ordained, Reverend Michael Fulbrecht and Reverend Kelly Hansen were both members in discernment for the last couple of annual meetings, and now both have been ordained, our first two virtual ordinations in the time of COVID. We're so happy to have been able to celebrate with both of you. It's been a really incredible experience to be a part of this process. We are gifted by the ministries and the spiritual gifts that both of these very unique individuals bring to our conference. We hope you'll stay with us for a very long time. Michael is the settled pastor at Peace UCC in Alma, Kansas, and Kelly Hansen is serving as chaplain at Truman Medical Center in Kansas City. Congratulations to Michael and Kelly.
And from Committee on Ministry A, we also want to thank our retiring ministers. In January of this year, Robin Myers retired after serving Mayflower for 35 years. Robin and his wife, Sean, remained in Oklahoma City, and he continues to teach at Oklahoma City University. 35 years is a long time to do any one thing, and we congratulate him on completing those years. And also retiring on our call tonight with us is Shanna McElroy. Sorry, dear. She retired just at the end of September, so it's 9 days that she's been retired from St. Paul's UCC in Indora. She was there for over 6 years as their pastor. This ends a 16-year career in active ministry in large congregations and at the denominational headquarters of Unity Church before she came to the UCC. Shanna says that if there's a truly effective vaccine, she's looking forward to traveling the country, seeing family and friends. I certainly understand that. Until then, she will be taking rides in the country to see area lakes and her wife, Kathy, and her dog. We see a picture of the dog. But Kathy, I think you were there earlier.
You can see Kathy's hand. Too.
Okay, I see Kathy right there behind. And she's looking forward to actually having weekends off with her darling wife. We can tell she's full of regret. Thank you both, Robin and Shan, for your years of ministry with us and among us.
Thank you. I want to thank my wife.
Pastors' wives are amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I am sure that David Wheeler is here somewhere.
Yes, I am. Thank you for cueing me. I've just got lulled into sleep there a little bit, just celebrating with Shan and watching her smile. So now I'm David Wheeler. I'm the pastor of the Federated Church in Weatherford, Oklahoma, and First Congregational Church of Norman. And Dennis Urich, the pastor of St. Peter's UCC in Inman, Kansas, and I serve on the conference council as local church liaisons. Dennis is the liaison for churches in Kansas, and I'm the liaison for congregations in Oklahoma. So by the way, if your congregation needs any assistance or has any questions about the things that you need or learning your way around the conference or for resources, you can start with us. And we also invite you to use us to keep the conference informed about exciting ministries that are happening in your congregation.
At every annual meeting, we have the opportunity to recognize congregations celebrating significant milestones of ministry. We usually have representatives of the congregations come forward and present them with certificates. But we can't do that this year. So we realize that just doing that doesn't really tell us anything about their ministry anyway. So we've invited congregations being honored to share a short video clip about their congregation. The invitation was wide open. They could tell us something about their history or something that they thought was the essence of who they are. But just a bit of their story as a congregation. And here's what some of them shared.
So we begin with Cathedral of Hope, celebrating 20 years of ministry. Check out this video.
Happy 20th birthday, Cathedral of Hope, Oklahoma City. So, sisters and brothers, live passionately, love faithfully, and celebrate every moment of your life together, from now until the finale. For the God whose love really does endure forever is with you, goes with you, expresses life to that city through you. Thank you. Amen.
Greetings, everyone. This is Kevin McLemore. I'm pastor of Epiphany United Church of Christ here in Chicago, Illinois. I've been the pastor here for about 9 years. I bring you greetings from my own congregation, and I bring greetings of the larger United Church of Christ, who is celebrating, I'm sure, in heart anyway, with your 20th anniversary celebration. And I know God's going to continue to do a new thing with the Cathedral of Hope, Oklahoma City. It was a privilege to serve you even for a short time. I wish you all the good blessings that God has for you in the future. You will always be a part of my heart, and I hope you have many, many good years ahead of you. Have a good 20th celebration.
Hi there, everyone. It's Tessie and Lisa. We just finished up a Taizé service up here in Bellingham, Washington, where we live, about 90 miles north of Seattle. Whenever I think about you all, I think the Oklahoma people, just salt of the earth. And I know that we had some amazing times together, and we had some challenges as well, and I'm sure you've had plenty more of both of those over the last 20 years. But I think it's true that nothing lasts forever, but nothing is lost forever either. So it's good to be back with you tonight.
Hello. Congratulations to you, Cathedral of Hope, Oklahoma City, on your 20th anniversary as a community of faith. So my prayer for you today is that you will let the joy and the pride of this anniversary celebration become the energy behind your commitment for the next 20 years. Be consistent in expressing your faith in the God of infinite love. Be persistent in creating the momentum that will carry you and the community you serve into the more just and equitable future. And as you continue your journey, please remember this: I love you, and I always will. Happy anniversary.
So I was thinking back of all the fun we had at cookouts and swim parties and fundraisers and dances and drag bingo and all of the good work that we did in caring for one another and in service to the community and our advocating for greater justice. Really, from 2005 to 2010, when I was there, we were on the front lines of LGBT equality work. And so you have much to be thankful for and much to celebrate. And so I and Michael and Sebastian send our greetings and our well wishes from Omaha, Nebraska, and really wish that we were with you. We had planned to be there in person to celebrate this event, and hopefully we can be in person very soon and be with you and hug you and enjoy all of the opportunities to celebrate and honor the good work that your congregation has done in these 2 decades. Blessings and peace.
But just wishing all the best to all of you in the coming years ahead. You have a great mission and ministry that is like no other. Be there intentionally for the LGBT community in a very special and different way. Blessings on your ministry and in your time.
Hi, Cathedral of Hope, Reverend Caleb Honeywell. We've been together since February 2016, so about 4.5 years. And I'm so happy to be here to celebrate our 20th anniversary. So much beautiful ministry. It's so fun to look back over it and to dream up and imagine and just live into what God has planned for us in the future. So it's a different time right now, right? And we get to be in ministry in new and different and creative ways, for which I'm grateful. So blessings to all of you, to all of us, and happy 20th anniversary.
So congratulations to Cathedral of Hope and to Caleb Bonnewell. I see some of you clapping your hands. Don't forget, you can use those reactions on there too, to whatever one suits your mood on your toolbar there. I see some hearts. Great. Show them the love. So congratulations once again, Cathedral of Hope. And we move into another grand celebration. We move on to celebrate Fellowship Congregational UCC and 70 years of ministry with Fellowship Congregational in Tulsa. Check it out.
Sorry, picked the wrong one. Give me just a second.
We sure appreciate you, Michael.
It's good to know he's human.
I would let Tobias speak for me. It's okay.
What's another bald-headed white guy among friends?
All right, here we go.
Fellowship Congregational United Church of Christ began in 1950 as a split from Second Presbyterian here in Tulsa. This church first met in the Seventh-day Adventist building, then met in the Hall of Temple Israel and in a union hall before buying this property here where we have resided since 1951. We're not the same church that we were in 1950 or 1965 or 1995. We've had a lot of conflict, both internally and externally, that's helped shape who we are. We are a peace and justice church. We are a anti-racist church. We're an open and affirming church, which all provides a different take on church, a different theology for this part of the world, and that's a good thing. So here we are at 70, grateful for the fellowshipians who have come before us to help lay the foundations of this place and help provide us some stability as we reach to the future. We're grateful for a city that, at very least, provides us lots of opportunities to show God's love. And we are grateful for a conference that has shown us church beyond our own walls, a way to connect with fellow followers of Christ seeking God's will and God's justice in the world. Here in the midst of a pandemic, next to a sanctuary where we have not worshiped together since March, I have no doubts that we will be here for another 70 years. So thank you for this recognition. And I will close as we close all of our services here at Fellowship. Go in peace, pray for peace, wage a little peace, and love one another, every single other.
Well, congratulations once again to Fellowship Congregational and to my friend and colleague, the Reverend Chris Moore, for their, as well as all those who've gone on before them, for these years of ministry. Everybody show them a little love. You know how to do it. You did well last time. That's right. So we take a big jump now to First Congregational Church in Goldtree, Oklahoma, celebrating 125 years of ministry. So take a look at this video and get ready to celebrate with them.
The Goldtree Congregational Church had its beginnings from the Springdale Congregational Church founded in 1894. William Malaby and his wife Margaret sold 1 square acre of their land in Garfield, O County of the Cherokee, Oklahoma Territory to M.E. Strait, C.E. Malaby, and Joe Ferris, trustees of the Springdale Congregational Church, September 21, 1895, for $50 in the southwest corner of the southwest quarter of Section 30, Township 24, Range 8, for a church site. According to Richard Taylor's Southern Congregational Churches, the Springdale Congregational Church was founded in 1894. A mortgage was signed on October 10, 1895 with the Congregational Building Society for $300 to erect a house of worship. The National Congregational and Christian Churches merged in 1895. The Springdale Church closed in 1904, and Goldtree Congregational Church was founded in 1904 as a reorganization of the Springdale Congregational Churches. By the end of the year, they had 48 members. Reverend Jonathan C. Daisy, ordained in 1882, served as pastor, and John M. Parks was the Sunday school superintendent. 64 people attended Sunday school that Sunday, with 19 being young people. The Goldtree Congregational Church was located south of the railroad tracks on Broadway, and members of congregational churches in Alvaretta and Caroma joined when their towns disbanded and moved to Goldtree in 1904. Through the years, this congregation has been a starting place for many a young minister, nurturing them in their spiritual journey, and many of the ministers who served prior to 1907 were students from Carrier Congregational Academy. When it closed, Phillips University opened its doors in 1907 in Enid, Oklahoma. The College of the Bible and later the Phillips Graduate Seminary provided many ministers for this church. In 1927, a new site was chosen at the current location and a new church was erected. The Reverend W.M. Oakes was pastor, and W.M. Oakes served this pastor in 5 separate services. This church was destroyed by fire in 1929, and the congregation met in the school while it was rebuilt with the same design using much of the original exterior brick wall. The church was rededicated in 1930, and Reverend M. L. Talley was pastor. The following dates are of importance to our church: the 1931 Congregational Christian Churches, 1934 Evangelical and Reformed Church, 1938 Conversations being moved toward a union, and in 1957 the United Church of Christ uniting the General Synod. In conclusion, I'd like to note that the reason the church is empty is the reason so many churches are empty. COVID from 2020 has asked us to remain in our homes, and we have done so. But the church is always important to us. And because of that, we will come back to our church just as soon as we can. We will wear masks, and we will celebrate the life of Jesus Christ and what he means to us.
Show this beloved congregation some love, just like you have the others. We congratulate the members of First Congregational Church in Goldtree, Oklahoma, as well as all of their members and Pastor Jeanette Heightfield, who serves there at Goldtree.
All right, we move north now into Kansas and up to Manhattan to First Congregational Church in Manhattan, who are celebrating 165 years of ministry.
Greetings from Manhattan, Kansas. My name is Kayla Simmons Wood, and I have the honor to be the pastor of First Congregational United Church of Christ. Today you are joining me here in the oldest part of our building. This space was completed in 1859. The people who gathered in this space for worship almost 165 years ago were people who hoped to sway the future of our nation by working to help Kansas enter the Union as a free state. Even as these abolitionists worked for justice for enslaved people, though, they were also a part of a movement that stole land from people who had been here for many, many generations. Our congregation stands on the ancestral lands of the Kaw, the Osage, and the Pawnee. Our ancestors, like us, worked for justice imperfectly. A few years ago, we undertook a major renovation of this room, and as we did that, I got to hear lots of stories from people, their memories of this room. And one of the stories that I heard several times was about how people met here for worship back at the turn of the 21st century when we were doing a renovation in our sanctuary. And the Reverend Kent Cormack, when he came to do his candidating sermon, he actually did it here in this room because the sanctuary was being renovated. And so on that day, as our congregation called its first openly gay pastor, people were aware that they were doing it here in this space that had once been a sanctuary for abolitionists, people who dreamed of a more just world. As we completed those renovations, the entire floor was removed, and we were able to see the original joists that were supporting the floor. We got to see lots of cool old stuff like 150-year-old nails. And the contractor showed me how with some of the joists, they were so old that they needed to have new joists sistered in brought alongside them to offer support. And I think sistering is a pretty good word for what we do as the church. Sistering is the way that we come alongside one another when we are worn out and tired. The way we hold on to each other tightly and say, here, use some of my strength. We can do this hard thing if we just hang together. Sistering is when we say to each other, look, you still have some life left in you. I'll show you if you let me come close to you to help. We are grateful to sister alongside all of you in the Kansas-Oklahoma Conference of the United Church of Christ.
Thank you, Kayla, and congratulations to you and the congregation there. Just as an aside, First Congregational in Manhattan is the highest per capita giving to OCWM in our conference. So, as David said, let's give them some love. And the last congregation that we're going to celebrate this evening is First Congregational Church in Topeka, Kansas. They are also celebrating 165 years of ministry.
Hello, KO Conference. This is Darren Stevens. I'm the moderator of First Congregational Church in Topeka, Kansas, and so excited to share with you a little bit about what's going on in our church and our community. This is an exciting time for us as it's the 165th anniversary of the conference, but a lot's going on in the church. So I want to take some time to share with you all that we're doing in order to bring to life the community, our church family, and everything that we've got going on. Thanks. It's been a very interesting time for us at First Congregational Church. going through the pandemic, looking at how do we bring to life our mission work when we can't come to church and gather like we're used to. So we got together as a church council and as a group to say, what can we do to ensure that we are bringing to life our ministry within our community and beyond? And we've gone to Facebook Live, as many people have done, many churches have done. We've brought the community and the church out. And it's been a very positive reaction for us, because we've not only reached out to our existing community church, but beyond the broader community in Topeka and cross state lines. As we continue to share things that are going on at our church, I brought you over to our community garden. I'm so excited to share with you the things that we've been doing. And this has really been a labor of love. And it starts in the springtime, and we gather as a community church, and we bring to life seeds for tomatoes and for carrots and for chives and for squash, for watermelon. All these things we spend the spring and summer cultivating for our church community. And on Sundays, people can come when they come to worship service, and they take some vegetables home. It's also allowed us to really bring together the broader community, because we have people that live within the neighborhood that come and are able to partake in the vegetables. One of the ways that we're reaching out to the community is helping with what we have developed within the church. A group of individuals has formed an organization called Heartworks, and this is a community-based program that goes beyond just the church, but reaches out to the community, to family members, to church members, to individuals who are struggling to help maintain their house. And unfortunately, the city that we live in, the government is going and fining individuals and citing them for things that are not properly painted on their house. Their paint is peeling. They've got boards that are rotted, and the city is fining them in order to help bring up the overall standards of the houses. However, these individuals are struggling because they don't have the funds or resources to be able to take care of this. So as a church group, we are going out and spending our time, and we've raised funds in order to provide for paint, to provide for supplies, and to be able to help these individuals get these code violations taken care of. So it's been a great way for us to connect with the community and show just what the First Congregational Church is all about, and bring a non-denominational group, not only within our church, but across other church families that are coming to help us in this mission. So I'm just going to wrap up and say how excited we are about the events that we've got going on in the church, the outreach that we're doing, both within the community and beyond. This has been a very trying time for all of us, and we have come together as a church community to be able to bring the Word of God, to bring the focus, to bring the love and the caring for others to life.
So congratulations to Pastor Tobias Schlingensieben and the members of First Congregational Church of Topeka. Congratulations to all those churches celebrating those significant anniversaries this year. We are grateful for the years in ministry and that you have been faithful to the UCC congregation serving your communities. Thank you and congratulations.
Well, this was great. I feel like I know and some of you, your congregations better than I ever would have otherwise. I'm really glad we did this. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, all the other tech people. And let's do this again, even if we're in person. I loved this. And now we get to go into recognizing our ministers who are having anniversaries. We've done this, we do that, we've done it in the same way. And we're going to do something very similar. We're going to have a video tonight. We usually call them, give them a certificate, just like we did the churches. But tonight we're going to have a video also. I think that maybe this will be as good. I don't know. But let's see it. Michael, if you're ready, roll the tape. Of course, it's not tape. Prize ministers deserve a round of applause. Let's all unmute. Let's unmute and let's hear the applause together. Y'all try
Oh, it doesn't work that way. Yay!
I like this too. You can sit. You can also keep sending other reactions. Thank you. This was so much more fun than usually standing up and handing out certificates. I can't tell you how much more fun it was. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Our conference minister will be next, I believe. Let's all mute ourselves again.
Actually, I'm going to pass the buck to Bobby.
Then I guess I better sit up. Okay. All right. You have to know Edith has gone off script here, but what we are doing now is we are welcoming back Rebecca Anderson. And not only Rebecca, but a number of folks that have agreed to share with us some of their stories. So Rebecca, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. So here's what's going to happen. We have 8 stories for you, which have been crafted for pithiness and impact. They are stories from folks here in the conference broadly on the theme of belonging, finding a home, or finding your people, or in fact, not finding those. People have built these stories this week, which is incredible. It happens every time I get the chance to do one of these kinds of workshops, and it never fails to feel like a miracle. So I am so grateful to these folks, and I know you will be too. We are going to do another one of those story prompts that I talked about on Monday, a little half sentence for you to finish. Some folks have already sent those to me. It would be great, I'll put it in the chat again, it would be great if you would message me privately with your response. That way we won't distract the storytellers or the other listeners, and I'll have a little something to say in between storytellers as kind of a palate cleanser. I don't think we'll need a palate cleanser, but you never know. So the prompt is, I almost never tell anyone about the time when I almost never tell anyone about the time when ellipsis. So you can private message me your response to that, and that would be so helpful. Let's see, when we, so I'm gonna sort of introduce each storyteller as though we're at like a comedy club or something. And you can, if you are willing to leave yourselves, leave your cameras on, at least long enough for folks to see that you're here and anticipating what they have to share, that's a great benefit to them. You can even, per the celebrations, unmute yourself and cheer them as they get spotlighted by Michael. But to the extent that you can, show with your face or your visual applause that you appreciate what they're doing. That is a great encouragement to them. You can also use the chat a little bit. Sometimes it's fun as a storyteller to scroll back and find out what people really loved about your story. So, you know, use your judgment, but do feel free to be in the chat a little bit. In Chicago, there's an event called We Still Like You. People get up and tell shame-based stories, non-criminal shame-based stories. And the contract with the audience is that no matter what a storyteller tells, the audience will say afterwards, we still like you, and they'll raise a glass to them. I have a beer here in my Women at the Cross pint glass, which was given to me at a Baptist church, which I find very confusing. So if you have a drink or a cup of tea or something there with you, you can use it to offer a kind of absolution to the folks who are going to share their prompts. When I first went to the We Still Like You event, I thought, oh, we have a way that we say that in the church. We pronounce it, peace be with you. So here are a couple of your stories, and then we will bring up your first storyteller. I almost never tell anyone about the time when I met Henry Kissinger and thought he was nice. I almost never tell anyone about the time when I rode my bike head on into a car at a stop sign. The car was fine, my bike was not. I walked home and made up something as to why my bike was bent. This was 27 years ago, and my parents still don't know. To the two of you who are on this call, We still like you. Thank you for sharing your stories. Now, if y'all will please, with your faces, with your expressions, or in fact by unmuting, welcome your first storyteller, Julia Gahn.
Yay!
Thank you, Julia.
Hi, everyone. I'm at soccer practice, so that's why we've got this interesting lighting, but here we go. The first note is from Phil and Pat. I've been at Plymouth over a decade now, but mail, real live pen on paper in an envelope with a stamp, is a different way to relate. And it's the first mail I've received from Phil and Pat, and my heart is warm and full. And there's another note, this one from Lana, and another, more church friends putting pen to paper to send support and remind me of why Plymouth and the UCC is home. Just the Sunday before, I shared testimony as part of Mental Health Sunday. My experience with depression and anxiety, my recovery, my work now teaching mental health first aid. I tell this part of my story with some frequency, but that Sunday, I was in the sanctuary for the first time since March. There's early fall light streaming in the stained glass. Kim was playing the organ right in the same room. We were only a handful of people, 6+ feet apart, in a building built for hundreds. And that Sunday, talking about the stigma that hovers around mental health, reminding folks that God gifts therapists to help us, encouraging us to be there for each other as God is always with us. Well, it was a lot, and I full on ugly cried all over YouTube. The flurry of texts and emails following the service buoyed me up, reminding me I was not alone and that I was seen and I was loved. And then to get these notes, these real live in my mailbox notes, it feels like Easter morning on a Thursday in September. Home. 20 years ago, I'm pre-BA, pre-JD, pre-motherhood, pre-marriage, pre-cell phone. I'm at this beautiful old brick church, downtown Lawrence on Vermont Street with my friend Sarah. We're church shopping, slightly hungover from one of those semi-rowdy scholarship hall parties. Neither of us are quite ready to step into our spiritual but not religious phase, but we are close, having both grown up feeling stifled in very traditional, super churchy families. We had been to a handful of churches, we'd go to a handful more, but this Sunday we're in the north pews, a little too close to the front for comfort. A couple of hymns are familiar, but no one really talks to us, and if there are other people in their early 20s, we don't see them. I mean, it's fine, Sarah says as we walk across the street to wheat fields. Yeah, I guess, I say back. It wasn't our worst church visit that spring, but it didn't click. We eat brunch and dissect our Saturday night and go back to campus. I never would have guessed that when Mike and I start church hunting in 2009 with our toddler, we'll visit the same beautiful old brick church on Vermont Street, our friend John having convinced us to give it a try, and find ourselves right at home. By 2015, I know the ins and outs of the building. I keep serving on boards and I teach an adult Bible study on Sunday mornings. I've got one of those codes to get into the building anytime. But what no one knew for a long time is that I wasn't at home in myself. I was good at putting up a front. And for those who know, I'm a pretty classic Enneagram type 2. I end up hospitalized that December as a way to keep me safe from suicide. I'm able to go home on Christmas Eve. And as I start trying to figure out how to live, like really fully live, I wonder how anyone would want me to be involved in anything going forward. I'm supposed to be the next moderator, but I feel like I'm failing at everything. I'm in our pastor's office, explaining to him what a mess I am and how sorry I am. I am so sorry for the trouble. And I totally understand why he'd want someone else to be in charge. And Peter looks at me. I think you are the perfect person to be our moderator right now. Sometimes God makes a home for us outside ourselves when we are having a hard time being at home inside ourselves. And next time, that I need a reminder that I belong, I'll pick up these notes from my church family. Part of helping others belong, of welcoming them home, is knowing what belonging feels like. And I thank you all for being my home.
Yay, Julia, thank you so much. Thank you for telling from soccer practice. Thank you for your wonderful story. Thanks for making a home for other folks. Yeah, show some love. You can show love in the chat with the reactions. You can keep sending those prompts. Thank you so much, Julia. We will keep rolling through our storytellers, and you can get ready. You can unmute if you want again, since we're living dangerously tonight, and welcome your next storyteller, Kayla Bonniwell. Yay, Kayla!
Yay, Kayla!
Yay, Kayla! The other Kayla.
That's the wrong Kayla.
I mean,
Kayla's like, what?
That one.
Newly ordained, I traveled 2,000 miles east of Berkeley, California, to settle into my first call, Rochester, Minnesota. I was looking for my BFFs outside my congregation, and it turns out that introducing oneself as a mainline Christian pastor wasn't the perfect formula for hitting it off. I searched for friends in the grocery line, the yoga class, the marriage equality protest rally, the coffee shop, the diversity center, the swimming pool, the Unitarian church on my Sundays off, the Democratic phone banking party, and the dog park. Finally, I attended an LGBTQ happy hour at the Wicked Moose Bar and Grill. A group of gay men in their 50s, 60s, and 70s were sitting outside with several tables moved together. I pulled up a chair and tried my best to join in. I wasn't sure I was going to have much luck until Greg arrived. Greg is a 6-foot-tall, bald man my age, which was 30 at the time, who reminded me of Mr. Clean. He took a seat by my side and didn't flinch one bit when I revealed that I was religious for a living. "Oh yeah," he replied, "I go to an AA meeting in the parlor of your church. I've seen your picture on the wall." From there, I found out that Greg was Buddhist and Wiccan, worked in a blood lab at the Mayo Clinic, was wildly irreverent, rarely showed emotion, and shared a love affair for all things Halloween and scaring people. He said to me, "Feelings are fine for the bubble bath, but at work, you gotta tuck those emotions down in your purse and do your goddamn job." I was suddenly overwhelmed with emotion. Here was a friend who was not going to delete their cuss words from our conversation just because I was a pastor. I wrote his quote down on a Post-it and stuck it in my purse. It hangs on my refrigerator to this day. Over time, Greg and I decided to host our own LGBTQ happy hour at a new local bar called The Tap Room. We called it Tappy Hour, and dozens of gay boys in their 20s and 30s attended religiously on Monday nights for craft beer and soft pretzels. At a New Year's Eve party hosted by one of them, I took an introvert's break and meandered through the rest of the house. I found an oddly placed door quite high up on one of the bedroom walls. It was a linen closet full of blankets, and my shenanigan wheel began to turn. I tracked down James, who lived there, and said, "Can I hide in this closet? And will you go and get Greg so I can scare him?" Yes, he replied. I stood on the bed and used it as a springboard to launch myself up into the high closet. James shut the linen closet door and returned with Greg a few minutes later. He was feigning a house tour, which ended in this bedroom where I was hidden. "Let me show you my linen closet," James said to Greg. "Will you open that door for me?" Greg opened the door, and I threw my arms out like claws with a matching "Ah!" Deadpan Greg never flinched, but I could tell by the evil sparkle in his eye that I had truly startled him, and he loved me for it. For the rest of the evening, Greg led unsuspecting gay boys through the house tour, and I scared every last one of them. We were true partners in crime. Our Tappy Hour produced 2 long-term love connections. I officiated one of those weddings 4 years later, And Greg got ordained online and signed the marriage license for the other couple in a non-ceremony which occurred during tappy hour with craft beer and soft pretzels. Instead of a wedding, the second couple, James and Tuan, threw a blowout reception at a local art gallery several months later. I had already moved to Oklahoma by that time, but drove the 13 hours north in order to attend the party. At some point that night, Greg and I needed an introvert's break. So I turned to him and said, "Let's explore the basement." In typical fashion, he responded, "Maybe someone was murdered down there." We found a stairwell and light switch that led to a musty room with draped over canvases. There was a rug in the middle of the floor, so Greg sat in lotus cross-legged position, and I joined him on my knees with my black party dress smoothed out. He pulled out a black Ouija board handkerchief out of his back pocket and laid it gingerly on the floor. So I arranged them in a pattern, a handkerchief for my shoulder. Take the time away from the crowd to catch up on all the gossip I'd missed since moving away, and then packed up our furniture to rejoin the wedding reception above. Many times that night, I stood next to Greg and looked out over this gaggle of boys. I saw Greg and I, the proud, non-procreating parents that we were, and relished in the love of this beloved queer community.
Yay! Thank you, Kayla. Thank you so much. I love it. At Gilead, my church, one of the most irreverent and beautiful things that we do is after someone tells a story, we say, "This is the word of God for the people of God." And everyone says, so the word of God. Thank you so much, Kayla. A few more of your stories. I almost never tell anyone about the time when I cracked my jaw when I cracked my jaw while trying to play catcher on the grade school baseball team when the batter swung the bat and connected with my jaw. Never tried being the catcher again. For that one, I think we have to include the batter in our "We Still Like You." I almost never tell anyone about the time when I was stopped by the police in the middle of the night after clocking my car going 96 miles per hour on a Pennsylvania highway. I almost never tell anyone about the time when I peed my pants during a timed mile run in college. Friends, we still like you. You can get ready to welcome your next storyteller with your face, with your voice. If you want to unmute with your hands, please welcome Ron.
I think that having a best friend is it's good practice for having a relationship with God. Some 40 years ago, my best friend was Johnny Smith. And we had just both, completed transitional events to begin our adult life, and we're trying to figure out who that was going to be. And we were roommates, and we were friends. We played games together. We camped together. It was one of the things that we really loved to do. That we would go to big reservoir that was near the town that we lived in, and we always camped on DNS Cove. That's what we named the cove for our last names, DeVore and Smith. And part of our camping ritual was to get our 4-man inflatable raft. And I should tell you that the designation 4-man means how many full-size people could keep their head and shoulders out of the water with one arm over the side of the raft and the rest of their body suspended in the water. If you put 4 people inside this thing, it would be clown car seating. But it was a great space for the 2 of us to hang out. And we always planned to, with the little Dixie cup type oars, we were going to paddle this raft clear across the lake. Never happened. But we would get out to the front end of our cove and kind of sit at the edge of the larger lake. And our friendship was that kind that we could we talked about anything and everything, but we also could just share silence. So we took joy in just being with one another, and sharing an event without necessarily commenting on it. And so we were out there at the lake, and it was moving toward evening to the sunset. And if you've ever been on a lake or a large body of water at sunset, you know that very frequently the lake will flatten out. It'll get just a surface that is just like a mirror. And that's what the lake did that evening. And I'm in the boat, and I've got my feet up over one side of the raft, my shoulders leaning back on the other side of the raft, and kind of resting my head on it like a giant pillow. And I'm watching the sunset. And I love sunset and sunrise. That they are this wonderful, this burst of color in the sky. You think about a sunset that when it starts, it's all golden and yellow and tangerine and peach and just these wonderful kind of soft colors, all stratified or mingled together. And then you get distracted and you look away, and then you look back, and it's 10 minutes later, and now it's purple, and it's tangerine, and it's burnt orange, and it's violet, and it's red, and it's still perfect, just like it was before. Completely different, but still perfect. And that those times when you can be aware that the earth is turning on its axis, when the sun appears to rise and set from our perspective, reminds me that the solar system is revolving around the sun, and that our whole solar system is taking its course around the Milky Way, and all of it is in the mind of God. All the worlds that God created, that I'm aware of them for a moment. So we're out there, and the sun is doing that thing, and I'm looking with my head just barely above the water. I'm looking out across, and the mirror that is the lake is reflecting that sunset, and I can't tell where the sky stops and the water starts. It's just all merged into the same thing. And then right where I'm looking, I see this fish, and it comes up out of the water and arches over. Now, I know that there was a mosquito, something like that there, that I can't see with my limited vision, but I take it by faith that the fish wasn't just going for a walk. It comes up, hits that mosquito, and then just arches right back over into the water, and there's that little concentric ring, little plop and ring. But I saw the whole thing. And in this moment, I just have this insight, this understanding that I glimpse the mind of God. And I see how it's all connected. I see how all of creation is there for reason and for purpose, and that I'm part of it. I'm part of it. This struggle that I've been in of trying to figure out what my place is, that I realize that my place is already there. My place has been there since the beginning of creation, just waiting for me to come along and take it. And I start talking about this. You'll have to take my word for this. I can talk for a really long time about almost anything. But I start talking about this, and Johnny gives me this incredible gift of listening. I mean, he doesn't, interject thoughts, doesn't, ask questions, nothing. He just listens. And I finally get done. I get it all talked out. I get it all finished. And I say to him, so what do you think? And he says, huh? And I said, I thought you were listening. I thought you were listening. I have this insight into the mind of God and all this stuff, and I was talking about it, and I thought you were listening to me. And he said, well, I was listening to you. I was listening to you. But listening to you talk is like listening to somebody sing in a foreign language. You can enjoy it and not understand any of it. He's still my best friend. And that he's still good practice for my relationship with God. When I talk to him, I know what it is to be completely and totally accepted. Thank you very much.
Yay. Thank you, Ron. Thank you so much. Yay.
It's great.
So a few more of your stories, and we can in fact use a few more of your stories. There's the prompt again. So here, from someone who I take it doesn't identify as a woman, I almost never tell anyone about the time when I dressed as a woman for Halloween. I almost never tell anyone about the time when I fell on my face on the sidewalk going to calculus class. I almost never tell anyone about the time that I was driving alone and picked up a hitchhiker. So as I said, you can put more of your stories in the prompts, or you can put more of your stories in the chat. Oh, I forgot. For those folks, sorry. We still like you. Thank you for sharing your stories. We still like you. Do put more of your little stories in the chat, especially because your next storyteller doesn't care what you do. It's me, y'all. I'm your next storyteller. Yay, here I am. So when I stepped up onto the porch, the automatic porch light didn't come on. I'd been there enough to know that they had one. But I stepped up onto the porch and the light didn't come on, and I thought to myself, I wonder if I need a minute before I ring the bell. And I decided no. When I got into the party, just like anybody else, I found the group of people that I knew the best. They were clustered in a circle, 4 or 5 people that I knew, and then one guy that I didn't. And they were in the middle of a conversation. In fact, what they were talking about, led by the guy that I didn't know, was about strategies for taking sex toys through TSA. And I just jumped into the middle of this conversation. I mean, you know, I'm not scared. I have opinions. I have a lot of opinions about going through TSA. Like when they want me to empty my pockets, if I've got a few OB tampons, I'm like, here you go, right in your bare hand. That's fine. You know, it's your plan, not mine. Here we are. So we talked about his plan and the sex toys, and he was at one point offended and said, you didn't ask what I wanted them for. And we were like, we understand. And finally, that part of the conversation came to a close, and we got to the sort of more regular beginner party talk. And I said, how do you know our hosts? And he said, oh, Matt and I climb together at the gym. We do like the climbing wall. And he said, how do you know them? And I said, I'm one of the pastors at their church. And he was like, oh! And he looked at the other people in the circle and he was like, why didn't you tell me? You knew. And one of the other people in the circle said, I told you our church was different. And I felt that that was my most successful coming out as a pastor ever. You know, that sort of like, that happens when you normally come out as a pastor, someone who thought you were interesting for 15 or 20 minutes and then they don't. But based on that kind of like shock and awe approach, I sort of adopted for a few years a way of introducing myself. Like when it got to that part in the conversation and someone would say, what do you do? I would say, I'm a pastor. What? Like, sorry to yell at you. But you know, to try to throw them off at the same moment that they were going to be thrown off anyway. Yeah, I like to throw them off balance just before that was going to happen. You know, I don't blame people. I don't blame people. Like if we've had 15 or 20 minutes of funny, smart, engaging, or even like flirtatious conversation, but they've had 20, 30, 40 years of whatever they think about church and the clergy. I mean, asking them to change like that, it's a big ask. So I get it. And it doesn't mean it's easy. You know, as we've talked about, friendship, dating. As a single pastor who dates, here in the order of frequency are the responses I get from dudes I come out to as a pastor on a date. First, most frequent. Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, sorry. So are you like, wow, I mean, like I know that you're not a
priest, obviously, but can you, I mean, are you, and I'm like, what, how do you normally get laid? You just assume it's going to happen unless you're on a date with a clergy person. Okay, second most frequent response. Dudes who think that the reason we don't make out is that I'm clergy when the reason is that I'm not into them. 3, much less frequent, are the people who are into it. And they're like, okay, here's a question I've always had. But you know what I don't want to talk about on a first date? Your childhood pastor, or like the mechanics of salvation. It's interesting, but it's not hot. You know, I don't want to get into it. Tied with that are guys who don't have degrees in theology, who have like a really hot take. You know what I mean? Like one guy told me that read in a certain light, the Bible is quite radical. Least frequent, thank God, are people who are super into it, who want to know, like, have you ever like kind of fool around in your robes? And I'm like, nope. It's my holy vocation. It's not cosplay. So when I got up onto the porch and the light didn't come on, I hit the bell. It was Ash Wednesday, and I had come right from church, and I had come from leading a confirmation class and then having an Ash Wednesday service. And I had been trying to teach these like 7th and 8th graders what I feel about Ash Wednesday, what it means to look into the faces of people I love, including extremely young people, and remind them that they're going to die. I rang the bell and I got let inside, and the adults showed me to a den, a family room, and then they cleared out. And so I was left alone with one of my confirmation students, a 14-year-old who was sitting on the couch crying, and I sat on the other end from her. And through the open door, we could hear the people in the other room talking. And I asked her what happened, even though I knew the outline of what had happened. The kid's parent had died, and they had died in a violent way. They had died by suicide, and it was quite sudden. And she sat across from me and she told me the facts, and then she leaped into meaning making the way people do, and started to add in other fears and feelings to her grief. What would people think when they found out? And her parent had been sick, hadn't they? They hadn't done this. Well, she said, everything happens for a reason. You know, and I'm not somebody to correct other people's theology in a time of crisis, but I was her confirmation teacher, and I said, honey, I wanna say something, which is that I don't think that God wanted your parent to die. I think God wanted your parent to be with you, and you're right, your parent was sick, and their sickness was so dangerous for them that it cost them their life. And I think that things don't always happen for a reason. And I said, I want you to know that, and I didn't say it all like this in a rush, but maybe I did. I said, when you think about this, how big it is and how hard, I want you to know that it's just as big and as hard as it feels like it is. Like when people talk about bad stuff happening in life, this is the size of bad stuff that happens to people, to adult people. And I said, I also think that you have what it takes to make it through this. The adults were getting drunk in the other room, and one of them wanted to talk about how her parent was in hell. I think I used to be embarrassed about my work, about our work. Or I tried to mitigate the embarrassment of it by how I do it. Like I'm the cool pastor, I work at the hip church, whatever. But the truth is, I'm a pastor. I'm just a regular, increasingly middle-aged pastor. When we sing at church, I sing enthusiastically, and I like it. I'm not secretly an atheist, as some people kind of hope. I'm a hopeful person, even now. And I have gotten over the embarrassment, way over it, because like many of you, I can walk into a room, almost any room so far, and ask, what happened? And then stay there. And I know many of you can too. So now, no matter where I am or who's asking, when I get asked, what do you do? The answer is simple, and I'm not worried about it. I'm a pastor. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. A few more of your stories. I almost never tell anyone about the time when I told my brother to keep something private that he definitely should not have kept private. I almost never tell anyone about the time when I worked at a car rental office in Beverly Hills. The singer Vicky Carr had rented a car, returned it, and needed a ride home. I was asked to drive her home. It was a week before my parents' anniversary, and Ms. Carr was one of their favorite performers. I shared that with her. When we arrived at home, she asked me to wait so she could go in and get an autographed photo for me to give my parents. I almost never tell anyone about the time when I peed my pants in IKEA as an adult. I told both of the people who peed their pants, who've shared their stories so far, there may be more of you, certainly there are more of you, that when we've done prompts like this at church, like easily a third of the responses have been about pants wetting. So apparently we're all carrying around a lot with us at all times. Friends, for those stories, with those stories, we still like you. And now you can get ready to welcome your next storyteller with your face, your voice, your hands, Donna Chung from Hawaii. Yay!
I grew up in Orange County, California, the only minority child, these days known as non-white, in Killiebrook Elementary School, until my little sister entered kindergarten and became the second child of color in our large suburban elementary school. My summer before college on the East Coast, I got the dream job as a ticket seller at the main gate of Disneyland, the happiest place in the world. It was a coup to get that job as they looked for an all-American look to their employees. One morning, a small Asian boy dressed in a navy blue school uniform with classic gold buttons, complete with matching shorts and matching cap, was in line in front of my booth. When it was his turn, he stepped up to my window. "Could I get one child's admission and a book of tickets, please?" I could not believe it. Just like that, I had done it. The thing that hurt me so many times my entire childhood. That assumption that I was from Japan or from China, that I wasn't from here. Where are you from? From America? No, before that, where were you born? New York? I'm American. Well, then where were your parents born? In a few seconds, my brain decided that this young Asian boy was from Japan and that a Japanese accent was going to come from his mouth. And my brain was having a hard time putting these two things together, this perfect New Zealand accent with his face and his uniform. En route to New York for college and back to California for vacations, I used the 5 to 6 hours on the airplane to reflect on the past semester and to transition. I would transition between my East Coast self and my California self. I consciously adapted to each place, so the white noise of the airplane served as a backdrop for reflection. I stayed on the East Coast, became a doctor, and married my husband. My dad's side of the family, my entire dad's side of the family, is from Hawaii. So I made a point of going to Hawaii with my family almost every year, often for a medical conference combined with a family vacation. It was fun to be mistaken for a local in Hawaii. We had a son who I saw not enough because of work, and adopted our baby daughter from Korea. And with that, I decided to stop practicing medicine to spend full time with my baby daughter and my young son. We went to Hawaii one last time. I knew we would no longer be able to afford to go to Hawaii once I left my job. On the airplane from Hawaii to Connecticut, I was overcome with sadness. And I thought, am I so superficial that I must go to resorts by the ocean in Hawaii to be happy? By the end of that plane ride, I knew that even though I had never lived there, Hawaii is the only place in the world where I felt that I belonged. One divorce and one part-time position in Connecticut later, I began to explore the possibility of working in Hawaii. I moved me and my family from Sandy Hook, Connecticut to Maui. I'm a doctor at the only hospital in Maui seeing cancer patients. As I walk down the hall on the way to seeing my next patient, I hear a woman pull a nurse aside and say, "I'll be right back. I have to go shishi." Oh my God. Have to go shishi. I haven't heard that word shishi since I was 10 years old. I never heard that phrase come out of anyone's mouth besides my parents, my brothers, or sister. I had forgotten that word. In one instant, that clinic, no, Maui, had become my childhood home. At 7-Eleven, yes, they have 7-Elevens in Hawaii, they have inari sushi by the cash registers. Inari, my favorite, rice sweetened and mixed with teeny tiny slivers of carrot and wrapped in a sweet little brown wrapper of deliciousness, eaten by hand, previously made only by my auntie. But the kicker, the ultimate compliment, is when I walk into an exam room or a hospital room and the man or woman waiting for me looks at me, smiles, and says, "Oh, are you a Maui girl?" My answer, no, but I wish I was. Inside, I'm deeply moved because in 52 years, in Orange County, California of my childhood, in Los Angeles, New York, Philly, Boston, in Connecticut, all the places I called home, in my local groceries, in restaurants, in stores, in my church, in hospitals, in professional conferences, no one ever said they thought that. No one ever assumed I was from there.
Oh my goodness, the word of God for the people. Let her hear it, y'all.
Thank you.
My goodness. Thank you, Donna. Make sure to scroll back through the comments. Thank you so much. A few more of your stories. I almost never tell anyone about the time when I went to my first lesbian party after starting seminary. I think some folks saw this, but I'll share it for those who didn't. One of my close friends saw me with a glass of Merlot. She said, "Preacher girl, I didn't think you drink wine anymore." I responded, "Damn, this happens to me all the time. I get water and it turns to wine." Nicely done. I'd almost never tell anyone about the time when I discovered that a woman had just set out a pitcher of orange juice from concentrate for the pre-church refreshments that had expired 8 years before. I proceeded to accidentally on purpose knock it over to save the church from food poisoning. I almost never tell anyone about the time that I partied with members of a traveling Cirque du Soleil cast when I was at a I almost never tell anyone about the time when I partied with members of a traveling Cirque du Soleil cast when I was at a hotel for a campus ministry leadership retreat in college. Friends, we still like you. Thank you so much. You can get ready to welcome your next storyteller, who is Dawn Miller. Dawn, welcome. Yay!
I was next to the oldest in a family of 12 children. So I had to pay my own way through college. And since I graduated at the top of the bottom third of my class, I wasn't going to go on an academic scholarship. It was summer jobs and a series of work grants at Doane College, a UCC school in Creighton, Nebraska. One of my work grants involved cleaning and mopping the cafeteria after the Saturday lunch. They didn't serve an evening meal, on Saturdays. Well, one Saturday, that job turned nasty when some of my classmates got sick at lunch. But to help you understand what happened, let me tell you about another of my work grants. I lived in the infirmary on the top floor of the men's dorm. When residents got sick, they would be sent to the top of the men's dorm, and it was my job to check their temperature, make sure they had enough fluids, and put them to bed if that's what needed to be done. And there was also a little kitchen there where I could fix soup or fix cereal in the morning if that kind of stuff was needed. In truth, I don't remember ever having done any of that. It was mainly, it was the refrigerator that was the most important part of the infirmary because diabetic students kept their insulin there. Well, one dreary Saturday morning, several of my friends wandered upstairs to hang out in the big open dorm area, lying around on all those unused beds. We were all bored, and several of my friends complained that there was just nothing to do. And that's when I had my brainstorm. I said, let's make our own excitement. I have an idea. But before I finish my story, let me tell you something about me that you probably don't know. I am an introvert, and I am shy. Now, I can almost hear a whole bunch of you saying, no way. But trust me, I am. And I was even more so when I was in college. For instance, I went through 4 years at Doane College, and I hardly ever had a date because I was too shy to ask. And the guys I hung out with were just like that, times 10. Well, now back to my story. Creating excitement was not normal for any of us. And I wasn't a jokester, or at least I wasn't back then. I told the guys what I had in mind, and they loved it. Of course, none of us believed that any of us would actually follow through. I began to doubt myself and ask, what was I thinking? How can I get out of this? Why did I open my mouth? Well, I got out a hot water bottle, opened a couple cans of chunky beef and vegetable soup, and dumped the contents into the hot water bottle, screwed the cap down, not too tight, and stuck it down my shirt. And when I did open my mouth again, I simply said, let's go to lunch and stir up some excitement. Well, when we made our plans, my shy guys didn't think I'd follow through and they'd be safe. And I was pretty sure that they were going to bail out and I would be left exposed. Looking back, I wonder if they had as big a knot in their stomachs as I did. Almost as if we knew the menu was soup and grilled cheese sandwiches. We went through the food line, grabbed the table right in the middle of the cafeteria, and then partway through the meal, I put it off as long as I could. I unscrewed the hot water bottle, and then I proceeded to get sick. I made this big retching nose, and I pushed on the hot water bottle and I threw up all over the middle of the dining room table. And after about the third heave, I pretty well emptied my hot water bottle by then, I was the center of attention. There were quite a few moans, and people began to pick up their tray, especially those close by, to move to a table further away. And then it happened. I can't remember for sure, but I think it was Booger, the absolute shyest member of our group, who picked up his soup spoon and scooped up some chunky beef and vegetable soup and ate it. And our other three buddies grabbed their spoons and they did the same thing. And everyone else in the cafeteria? Well, everyone else joined me. They threw up on their table. They threw up on the floor. They threw up on themselves and on each other. And within a couple of minutes, we were the only ones left. By now, I'm guessing that some of you have circled back around to thinking about my other work grant, the one where I deep cleaned the cafeteria on Saturday afternoons. Yep, some shy guys talked about playing a joke, and then they actually did it. And a bunch of people really threw up. And you know who had to clean up that mess? Me. On top of that, I got an invitation on Monday to visit with the Dean of Students. I considered locking the infirmary door on Saturdays after that. But hey, where would the Shy Guys gang hang out?
Holy cow, Don Miller, boy, do we still like you. Thank you. Amazing, Don. Please scroll back and see so much love for your disgusting story in the chat. Thank you so much. I'm going to drop, and Michael and Edith will share this information too, but I'm going to drop a couple of links in the chat for places to find me, places to stay in touch. I hear in the chatter that folks feel like, oh, let's start a storytelling thing where we are. Yes, please do. Start story sharing circles in your settings, in your congregations, in your community. Start public storytelling events. Do it outside if you still have warm weather. Plan for next year. Reach out if you want to brainstorm together about what's possible. You could start this thing with story prompts Sunday at church. The story prompts, the little half sentences, are a quick and dirty way to get into storytelling. And there are other exercises that you can do at the beginning of a small group. There are friends of mine who've structured small groups around storytelling, and I would be so happy to share that information with you. And in fact, I'll forward that through Michael, so you can get sort of just a handful of ideas to start thinking about ways to either start or further develop storytelling where you are. We have, let's see, just a couple more stories for you, and I am so excited to hear them. And then hear a few more of your stories. I almost never tell anyone about the time when I was an example of the myth of bad women drivers, when I rolled my first vehicle after a week of having it. Newly 16, after a long day of work, my brother's birthday, and it wasn't even insured yet. But the insurance man in town saved the day and added my car and myself to my parents' insurance. I almost never tell anyone about the time when I played a hooker in our local theater's production of The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. I almost never tell anyone about the time when I saw the movie The Ring, and in the middle of the night while I slept, my boyfriend turned on the TV full volume, and I was so terrified that I hid in the bathroom and refused to leave until morning. It was the last scary movie I ever saw, and he is no longer my boyfriend. please welcome your face, your hands. You can unmute your next storyteller, Shane Spangler. Yay, Shane.
I think everyone assumed I was the priest's toy boy from the way he took me everywhere and dressed me according to his preferences, and the way he took me to the gym with him every day. He was in his late 50s. I was still in my 20s. And looking back, I guess I was really pretty. It was at the Roosevelt Hotel, I think, one of the beautiful old hotels in New Orleans. It was a warm, sunny February Saturday afternoon, and I was waiting to pick up a famous concert pianist to take him to a private concert hall for a charity benefit recital. And I had probably never looked better in my life. I was dressed in a tailored tuxedo. I've been lifting weights and swimming every day for a year. The tuxedo fit me well. The Louisiana sunshine had given me a year-round tan. My shoes had been shined at the rectory by Ms. Edna, who would never look me in the eye. And I had never tied a real bow tie, so my tie hung limp and useless around my neck. Now, the priest who dressed me always wore a clerical collar and a gilet. He said, "Don't ask me, I've never worn a necktie in my life. Maybe you could ask the concierge." So I entered this vast, echoing coliseum of a lobby. The concierge was an athletic-looking young man, about my age, sandy blonde hair, blue eyes, and he was standing behind his desk in an alcove. It was dark with hand-finished wood paneling and brass and crystal from floor to ceiling. So I said, "Excuse me, I'm going to a gala concert in a few moments and I don't know how to tie a bow tie. Could you help me?" And the concierge gave me a half smile and went, "I can't tie a tie on someone else, but let me talk to someone in the salon." He disappeared for a few minutes and then he came back with a Cheshire cat grin. "I just talked to Josh in the salon," he said, "and he will tie your bow tie for you." "Oh, thank you so much. Just follow me." We went a few steps and he turned and he looked me in the eyes and he said, "Oh, and by the way, today is your wedding day." I stopped. "What?" He showed me, he said, "It's the only way he would do it." So we kept walking. I tried to come up with some answers to the questions that might be asked, names, dates, places that I might need to know. We got to the salon. The salon was trimmed out in marble and brass. It smelled like expensive shampoo and cologne and fingernail polish. And there was Josh. Dark hair, dark eyes, broad shoulders, tan, $1 million smile, perfect haircut, short stubbly beard, and he clapped me on the back. He said, "Hey man, congratulations." And he stood me in front of a mirror where I could see my hazel eyes and his dark brown eyes, which were rimmed with thick, dark eyelashes. And he put his strong hands on my shoulders and they felt warm and confident. And I could feel my face getting hot. The concierge was still standing there and he looked through me with a barely concealed grin on his face. My tie was still hanging down limp with one of the blobby edges lower than the other. So Josh firmly gripped the edges of the tie. He said, "So how did you meet your wife-to-be?" "We met in school," I lied. He wrapped one strand of the tie around my neck and I felt it tighten. "What's her name?" "Stephanie," I lied. He brought the other end of the tie upwards and made a knot. "What does she do?" "She works in a fish hatchery," I lied, although now it was beginning to resemble the truth because my ex-wife is indeed Stephanie, and I did meet her in school, and she did work in a fish hatchery. I just couldn't come up with an original lie fast enough to keep up with his questions. And so now the truth and the lies were becoming interlaced. And I began to feel kind of dizzy and distant. And there was a spotlight that was shining directly in my face. And I could see all that sunshine had started to form wrinkles on my forehead and around my eyes and around my mouth. By now, the concierge could see that I was a good liar, and so he walked out and he left me to my fate. Josh folded one blobby edge of the tie in the center to make a flat, one-dimensional bow tie in front of my Adam's apple. "Where are you getting married?" he asked. "In St. Joseph's Cathedral," I lied. It was the only church that I knew the name of in New Orleans. And just that morning, someone had profaned it by urinating in the holy water font. Josh raised an eyebrow, and there were now two bow tie shapes perpendicular to each other. It was like a distorted cross or the crosshairs of the sights of a rifle right over my Adam's apple. And I said, "Oh, it's just a real small ceremony, just family." Josh brought the two flat bow ties together, interlaced them, said, "Sounds nice. Are you going on a honeymoon?" "We're going to a concert tonight," I said, which was half a lie and half truth, and then spent a little time in the French Quarter. With his tanned, muscular hands and perfectly manicured nails, Josh gripped the tie, pulled it into a perfect bow, patted me on the shoulder and said, "There you go, buddy. Congratulations." "Thank you," I said. I blushed again. And I walked out of the salon, down the hall, into the lobby, alone.
Thank you, Shane. Amazing. Do scroll back in the comments. Y'all, huge thanks to Shane, to all of the storytellers we've heard so far, to Julia, to Kayla, Ron, Donna, Don, Shane. It's such a pleasure to meet y'all. It's such a strange and wonderful way to meet people. I'm so glad to have connected with you. Thank you for having me. Thanks to Edith and Michael and to all the folks who are making the thing happen. Do stay in touch if that's useful or meaningful to you. And please welcome your last storyteller for the night, Rachel Pryor.
Hi, everyone. In 2016, we left Kansas after having lived here for almost 3 years, and we didn't know if we were coming back or not. The small college my husband works for was attempting to scramble its way out of accrediting probation for financial mismanagement. So we put our house up for sale, a tiny white cottage perpetually coated with grain dust from the elevator across the street. We packed the kids and whatever else we could haul in our 15-year-old Honda CRV and left the rest in storage, and then trekked our way through stops with friends and family to a 9-month research fellowship in New Jersey. And then in 2017, we came back to Kansas. Bethany College miraculously overcame probation and is now a poster child for small college survival. We pulled all our stuff out of storage and settled into a rented duplex and picked up where we had left off. Despite my innumerable reassurances, my son Henry was worried that everyone at school would have forgotten about him. The day we walked back into the office to re-register him for 2nd grade, I could have kissed the school secretary. We were barely through the door when she exclaimed, "Why, Henry Pryor, we've been wondering when you'd be home again." By coincidence, one of the 2nd grade teachers was also in the office, a youngish woman with a huge smile, one of those people who, like my son, seems to never stop moving. All of our classes are the same size now, Henry, so it doesn't matter who we put you with. I would love to be your teacher. Would you like to be in my class? And the combination of her friendly welcome and the huge honor of choosing your own second grade teacher and the reassurance that others might remember him too left Henry speechless for the first time in his life for about 30 seconds. And then I eventually had to drag him out of the school so the staff could get more work done that day. I was so focused on Henry's reacclimation to our community that I didn't think much about my own until a few nights later. By text and Facebook message and chance encounter, a plan gradually shaped up to gather a group of friends at the only bar in town for an end of summer catching up. Just to be clear, this bar, called the Stuga, in reference to the town's Swedish heritage, is also where the local Lutheran churches host their annual youth group chili cook-off, and where my son begged to have his 4th birthday party because they have a pinball machine and the potato chips come with a side of ranch dressing. It's a place where any night of the week, I'm guaranteed to run into at least 2 or 3 people I know. We started out on the back patio enjoying one of the first Kansas summer nights in weeks where it wasn't still oppressively hot and humid at 11 p.m. And within the first hour, our group swelled to 3 times the size I had expected. I remember that it was a big beer Thursday and we sat drinking cold watery beer from giant plastic cups while mosquitoes feasted on our bare ankles. Some people only stayed for an hour and some people stayed for the whole night. But every single one of them said, "Rachel, I'm so glad you're back. Rachel, tell me all about your year. Rachel, I can't stay long, but I couldn't miss this chance to see you again." When we closed the bar sometime around 2 a.m. that night, I was completely unprepared to be in the center of a gathering that would turn out to become this foundation for an even more tightly knit group of friends that has ridden out the joys and grief of life for the past 3 years. I always feel a little bit ashamed when adults talk about having a best friend from kindergarten. I don't have a best friend from my childhood. In fact, there's no one I'm still closely connected with that I met before age 17, even though I lived in the same place for my entire life up until that point. And sometimes that feels like a deficiency, like it's something that I failed at. It's taught me to assume that I'm forgettable, or at least not particularly memorable. That way I won't be hurt if someone forgets my name or how much I cared about them. Some people say you can't go home again. But more than once in my life, I have found almost the opposite to be true. That leaving was a time when I could truly name my people, the ones I didn't want to let go of. And returning was when my people said, yes, you were ours all along. You were memorable, you were missed, and we've been wondering when you'd be home again.
That's right.
Thank you, Rachel. And thank you to all the storytellers. It's been so much fun hearing your stories. We've wrapped up our last evening meeting. It's been great. Thank you to Rachel. And again, thank you to all of the storytellers. Those of you that took the risk to share with us some of your deepest feelings. And here's to you. And so now we have one more meeting to look forward to, and then our worship on Sunday. So we want to, before I close, I want again to say Thank you to the Committee on Ministry, to Suzanne and Rachel for their participation, to our local church liaisons, Dennis and David. Congratulations to the congregations and the pastors celebrating anniversaries. That was fun. And to Michael, especially for putting together the slides and the music and giving us those, that look back at people who have meant so much to many of us over the years. We will convene tomorrow morning at 9, promptly at 9, to conduct the business of the conference, and then to hear our closing plenary with Brian Bond. If you can expect to receive the email in the morning with the link. And so I will now invite Michael for our closing prayers, with a reminder again, promptly at 9, so you might want to log in just a few minutes early. We will be in recess after the closing prayer. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, wow, I totally forgot that I was supposed to do this. Okay, let us pray. O God of celebration and God of story, we are reminded that you are not only with us in those difficult moments of sadness or of pain, but, oh God, you are a God of joy, a God of celebration, a God of laughter, a God that smiles. We smile this evening having celebrated pastors and churches and people here in Kansas and in Oklahoma. We smile having heard our stories being told, stories that remind us that we are not alone, that life goes on, that we are in this together. And we are together in this moment, this evening, and in every moment of our lives. Thanks be to God for this family of faith. Thanks be to God for the gift of your presence, God, for the gift that is here in all of us. May we feel that as we go this night. May we feel that tomorrow. May we feel that as we build your kingdom, as we build your beloved community, as we build this family that is your own heart. Amen.
Amen. Good night, everyone.
Good night, and thank you, Rebecca, so very much,
Yes.
if you're still on.
I am. Such a pleasure, y'all. Thank you. Thank you, Edith, for getting in touch. Have a good night, a good rest of the week. Thanks again.